Section 24 of The Dream of the Red Chamber, Book 1. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Mary J. The Dream of the Red Chamber, Book 1, by Cao Xueqin. Translated by Henry Bencraft Joly. Chapter 11, Part 1. In honor of Cha Qing's birthday, a family banquet is spread in the Ning mansion. At the sight of Si Feng, Cha Rui entertains feelings of licentious love. We will now explain, in continuation of our story, that on the day of Cha Qing's birthday, Cha Chen began by getting ready luscious delicacies and rare fruits, which he packed in 16 spacious present boxes, and bade Cha Rong take them, along with the servants belonging to the household, over to Cha Qing. Turning round towards Cha Rong, "Mind," he said, "that you observe whether your grandfather be agreeable or not before you set to work and pay your obeisance. My father," tell him, "has complied with your directions, venerable senior, and not presumed to come over, but he has at home ushered the whole company of the members of the family into your apartments, where they all paid their homage facing the side of honor." After Cha Rong had listened to these injunctions, he speedily led off the family domestics and took his departure. During this interval, one by one arrived the guests. First came Cha Lien and Cha Se, who went to see whether the seats in the various places were sufficient. "Is there to be any entertainment or not?" they also inquired. "Our master," replied the servants, "had at one time intended to invite the venerable Mr. Cha Qing to come and spend this day at home, and hadn't for this reason presumed to get up any entertainment. But when the other day he came to hear that the old gentleman was not coming, he at once gave us orders to go in search of a troupe of young actors, as well as a band of musicians, and all these people are now engaged making their preparations on the stage in the garden." Next came, in a group, Mesdames Xing and Wang, Lady Feng, and Pao Yü, followed immediately after by Cha Chen and Mrs. Yü, Mrs. Yü's mother having already arrived and being in there in advance of her. Salutations were exchanged between the whole company, and they pressed one another to take a seat. Cha Chen and Mrs. Yü both handed the tea round. "Our venerable lady," they explained as they smiled, "is a worthy senior, while our father is, on the other hand, only her nephew, so that on a birthday of a man of his age we should really not have had the audacity to invite her ladyship. But as the weather at this time is cool, and the chrysanthemums in the whole garden are in luxuriant blossom, we have requested our venerable ancestor to come for a little distraction, and to see the whole number of her children and grandchildren amuse themselves." This was the object we had in view, but, contrary to our expectations, our worthy senior has not again conferred upon us the lustre of her countenance. Lady Feng did not wait until Madame Wang could open her mouth, but took the initiative to reply. "Our venerable lady," she urged, "had, even so late as yesterday, said that she meant to come, but in the evening, upon seeing her brother Pao eating peaches, the mouth of the old lady once again began to water, and after partaking of a little more than the half of one, she had, about the 5th watch, to get out of bed 2 consecutive times, with the result that all the forenoon today she felt her body considerably worn out. She therefore bade me inform our worthy senior that it was utterly impossible for her to come today, adding, however, that, if there were any delicacies, she fancied a few kinds, but that they should be very tender." When Cha Chen heard these words, he smiled. "Our dowager lady," he replied, "is, I argued, so fond of amusement that, if she doesn't come today, there must, for certainty, be some valid reason, and that's exactly what happens to be the case." "The other day I heard your eldest sister explain," interposed Madame Wang, "that Cha Rung's wife was anything but well. But what's after all the matter with her?" "She has," observed Mrs. Yü, "contracted this illness verily in a strange manner. Last moon, at the time of the Mid-Autumn Festival, she was still well enough to be able to enjoy herself during half the night, in company with our dowager lady and Madame Wang. On her return, she continued in good health, until after the 20th, when she began to feel more and more languid every day, and loth likewise to eat anything. And this has been going on for well nigh half a month and more. She hasn't, besides, been anything like her old self for 2 months. May she not," remarked Madame Xing, taking up the thread of the conversation, "be ailing for some happy event?" But while she was uttering these words, someone from outside announced, "Our senior master, second master, and all the gentlemen of the family have come, and are standing in the reception hall." whereupon Cha Chen and Cha Lien quitted the apartment with hurried step, and during this while Mrs. Yü reiterated how that some time ago a doctor had also expressed the opinion that she was ailing for a happy event, but that the previous day had come a doctor, recommended by Fang Tzu Ying, a doctor who had from his youth up made medicine his study, and was very proficient in the treatment of diseases, who asserted after he had seen her that it was no felicitous ailment, but that it was some grave complaint. It was only yesterday, she explained, that he wrote his prescription, and all she has had is but 1 dose, and already today the giddiness in the head is considerably better. As regards the other symptoms, they have as yet shown no marked improvement. I maintain, remarked Lady Feng, that, were she not quite unfit to stand the exertion, would she in fact on a day like this be unwilling to strain every nerve and come round? You saw her, observed Mrs. Yü, on the 3rd in here. How that she bore up with a violent effort for ever so long, but it was all because of the friendship that exists between you two, that she still longed for your society, and couldn't brook the idea of tearing herself away. When Lady Feng heard these words, her eyes got quite red, and after a time she at length exclaimed, "In the heavens of a sudden come wind and rain, while with man, in a day and in a night, woe and weal survene." But with her tender years, if for a complaint like this she were to run any risk, what pleasure is there for any human being to be born and to sojourn in the world? She was just speaking when Cha Rung walked into the apartment, and after paying his respects to Madame Sheng, Madame Wang, and Lady Feng, he then observed to Mrs. Yü, "I have just taken over the eatables to our venerable ancestor, and at the same time I told him that my father was at home waiting upon the senior and entertaining the junior gentlemen of the whole family, and that in compliance with grandfather's orders he did not presume to go over. The old gentleman was much delighted by what he heard me say, and having signified that that was all in order, bade me tell father and you, mother, to do all you can in your attendance upon the senior gentlemen and ladies, enjoining me to entertain with all propriety my uncles, aunts, and my cousins. He also went on to urge me to press the men to cut, with all dispatch, the blocks for the record of meritorious deeds, and to print 10,000 copies for distribution. All these messages I have duly delivered to my father, but I must now be quick and go out, so as to send the eatables for the elder, as well as for the younger gentlemen of the entire household." "Brother Rung exclaimed Lady Feng, "wait a moment. How is your wife getting on? How is she after all today?" "Not well," replied Cha Rung. "But were you, aunt, on your return to go in and see her, you will find out for yourself." Cha Rung forthwith left the room. During this interval, Mrs. Yü addressed herself to Mesdames Sheng and Wang. "My ladies," she asked, "will you have your repast here, or will you go into the garden for it? There are now in the garden some young actors engaged in making their preparations." "It's better in here," Madame Wang remarked, as she turned towards Madame Sheng. Mrs. Yü thereupon issued directions to the married women and matrons to be quick in serving the eatables. The servants, in waiting outside the door, with one voice signified their obedience, and each of them went off to fetch what fell to her share. In a short while the courses were all laid out, and Mrs. Yü pressed Madames Sheng and Wang, as well as her mother, into the upper seats, while she, together with Lady Feng and Pao Yü, sat at a side table. "We've come," observed Madames Sheng and Wang, "with the original idea of paying our congratulations to our venerable senior on the occasion of his birthday. And isn't this as if we had come for our own birthdays?" "The old gentleman," answered Lady Feng, "is a man fond of a quiet life, and as he has already consummated a process of purification, he well may be looked upon as a supernatural being, so that the purpose to which your ladyships have given expression may be considered as manifest to his spirit upon the very advent of the intention." As this sentence was uttered, the whole company in the room burst out laughing. Mrs. Yü's mother, Mesdames Sheng and Wang, and Lady Feng, having one and all partaken of the banquet, rinsed their mouths and washed their hands, which over, they expressed a wish to go into the garden. Cha Rung entered the room. "The senior gentlemen," he said to Mrs. Yü, "as well as all my uncles and cousins, have finished their repast, but the elder gentleman, Mr. Cha Xue, who excused himself on the score of having at home something to attend to, and Mr. Secundus, Cha Cheng, who is not partial to theatrical performances and is always afraid that people will be too boisterous in their entertainment, have both of them taken their departure. The rest of the family gentlemen have been taken over by Uncle Secundus, Mr. Lien, and Mr. Se to the other side to listen to the play. A few moments back, Prince Nan Un, Prince Tung Ping, Prince Shi Ning, Prince Pei Ching, these 4 princes, with Nu, Duke of Chen Guo, and 5 other dukes, sit in all, and Shi, Marquis of Chung Ching, and others 7, in all 8 marquises, sent their messengers with their cards and presents. I have already told father all about it, But before I did so, the presents were put away in the counting-room. The lists of presents were all entered in the book, and the "received with thanks" cards were handed to the respective messengers of the various mansions. The men themselves were also tipped in the customary manner, and all of them were kept to have something to eat before they went on their way. But, mother, you should invite the two ladies, your mother and my aunt, to go over and sit in the garden. Just so, observed Mrs. Yü. But we've only now finished our repast, and we're about to go over. I wish to tell you, madam, interposed Lady Feng, that I shall go first and see Brother Rung's wife, and then come and join you. All right, replied Madame Wang. We should all have been fain to have paid her a visit, did we not fear lest she should look upon our disturbing her with displeasure. But just tell her that we would like to know how she is getting on. My dear sister, remarked Mrs. Yü, as our son's wife has a ready ear for all you say, do go and cheer her up, and if you do so, it will besides set my own mind at ease. But be quick and come as soon as you can into the garden. Pao Yü being likewise desirous to go along with Lady Feng to see Lady Qin, Madame Wang remarked, go and see her just for a while, then come over at once into the garden, for remember she is your nephew's wife, and you couldn't sit in there long. Mrs. Yü forthwith invited Madames Wang and Xing, as well as her own mother, to adjourn to the other side, and they all in a body walked into the garden of concentrated fragrance, while Lady Feng and Pao Yü betook themselves, in company of Cao Rung, over to this side. Having entered the door, they with quiet step walked as far as the entrance of the inner chamber. Mrs. Qin, upon catching sight of them, was bent upon getting up. But, be quick, remonstrated Lady Feng, and give up all idea of standing up, for take care, your head will feel dizzy. Lady Feng hastened to make a few hurried steps forward to grasp Mrs. Qin's hand in hers. My dear girl, she exclaimed, how is it that during the few days I've not seen you, you have grown so thin? Readily she then took a seat on the rug on which Mrs. Qin was seated, while Pao Yü, after inquiring too about her health, sat in the chair on the opposite side. Bring the tea in at once, called out Cao Rung, for Aunt and Uncle Secundus have not had any tea in the drawing-room. Mrs. Qin took Lady Feng's hand in her own and forced a smile. This is all due to my lack of good fortune, for in such a family as this, my father and mother-in-law treat me just as if I were a daughter of their own flesh and blood. Besides, your nephew, my husband, may, it is true, my dear aunt, be young in years, but he is full of regard for me, as I have regard for him, and we have had so far no misunderstanding between us. In fact, among the senior generation, as well as that of the same age as myself, in the whole clan, putting you aside, aunt, about whom no mention need be made, there is not one who has not ever had anything but love for me, and not one who has not ever shown me anything but kindness. But since I've fallen ill with this complaint, all my energy has, even every bit of it, been taken out of me, so that I've been unable to show to my father and mother-in-law any mark of filial attention, yea, so much as for one single day, and to you, my dear aunt, with all this affection of yours for me, I have every wish to be dutiful to the utmost degree, but in my present state, I'm really not equal to it. My own idea is that it isn't likely that I shall last through this year. Pao Yü kept, while she spoke, his eyes fixed intently upon a picture on the opposite side, representing some begonias drooping in the springtime, and upon a pair of scrolls, with this inscription, written by Qin Tai Shu: A gentle chill doth circumscribe the dreaming man, because the spring is cold. The fragrant whiff, which wafts itself into man's nose, is the perfume of wine. And he could not help recalling to his mind his experiences at the time when he had fallen asleep in this apartment, and had in his dream visited the confines of the great void. He was just plunged in a state of abstraction, when he heard Mrs. Qin give utterance to these sentiments, which pierced his heart as if they were 10,000 arrows, with the result that tears unwittingly trickled from his eyes. Lady Feng, perceiving him in tears, felt it extremely painful within herself to bear the sight, but she was on pins and needles lest the patient should detect their frame of mind, and feel, instead of benefit, still more sore at heart, which would not, after all, be quite the purpose of her visit, which was to afford her distraction and consolation. Pao Yü, she therefore exclaimed, you are like an old woman. Ill as she is, simply makes her speak in this wise, and how ever could things come to such a pass? Besides, she is young in years, so that after a short indisposition her illness will get all right. Don't, she said as she turned towards Mrs. Qin, give way to silly thoughts and idle ideas, for by so doing, won't you yourself be aggravating your ailment? All that her sickness in fact needs, observed Cha Rung, is that she should be able to take something to eat, and then there will be nothing to fear. Brother Pao, urged Lady Feng, your mother told you to go over as soon as you could, so that don't stay here and go on in the way you're doing. for you after all incite this lady also to feel uneasy at heart. Besides, your mother over there is solicitous on your account. You had better go ahead with your Uncle Pao," she consequently continued, addressing herself to Cha Rung, "while I sit here a little longer." When Cha Rung heard this remark, he promptly crossed over with Pao Yü into the garden of concentrated fragrance, while Lady Feng went on both to cheer her up for a time and to impart to her in an undertone a good deal of confidential advice. Mrs. Yü had dispatched servants on 2 or 3 occasions to hurry Lady Feng before she said to Mrs. Qin, "Do all you can to take good care of yourself, and I'll come and see you again. You're bound to get over this illness, and now in fact that you've come across that renowned doctor, you have really nothing more to fear." "He might," observed Mrs. Qin as she smiled, "even be a supernatural being and succeed in healing my disease, but he won't be able to remedy my destiny. For, my dear aunt, I feel sure that with this complaint of mine I can do no more than drag on from day to day." "If you encourage such ideas," remonstrated Lady Feng, "how can this illness ever get all right? What you absolutely need is to cast away all these notions, and then you'll improve. I hear, moreover, that the doctor asserts that if no cure be effected, the fear is of a change for the worse in spring, and not till then. Did you and I, moreover, belong to a family that hadn't the means to afford any ginseng, it would be difficult to say how we would manage to get it, but were your father and mother-in-law to hear that it's good for your recovery, why not to speak of 2 mace of ginseng a day, but even 2 caddies will be also within their means. So mind you do take every care of your health. I'm now off on my way into the garden. Excuse me, my dear aunt," added Mrs. Qin, "that I can't go with you. But when you have nothing to do, I entreat you to come over and see me, and you and I can sit and have a long chat." End of section 24.